Carla,
What's up?
second show back.
I know it feels good. It feels good to
This
be
feels
back.
good. I feel like the training wheels are off.
I know, I know, right? How you
Uh,
doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Um,
Nice.
I think now that we're doing this again, I feel like I really actually missed like talking to really like interesting people out in the field.
You mean like in person?
Well, like this being in person, right? Like
Yeah,
our
yeah,
opportunity to talk to people that we admire.
yeah.
And if I'm being perfectly honest, I feel like we set this up so that we could like finagle conversations with people. Like we're like, hey, don't you want to be on our podcast? But really, we want to like share space with people that we think are pretty cool and pretty smart.
Of course, of course. I agree. I think that's why I really
Um,
love the show.
yeah. So should we jump right in?
Let's jump right in. Let's do it.
Speaking of smart people, we're joined today with by Edmund and Ian from HipHopEd. Fellows, thank you for joining us.
Of course.
And I can you help me understand? It's not like you go to work. You're not going to the HipHopEd office, right? This is like something you do when you're not trying to get your PhD or actually making a living doing something else. Like what is talk to me about HipHopEd and how it fits into your lives.
Yeah. So, HipHopEd is we're a nonprofit organization to start. But we started off as just an organization of just, scholars and educators who just cared about the intersections of hip hop and education. From there, we've grown, from Twitter, having these weekly chats on Twitter every Tuesday night for over 10 years now, Ian, and, into hosting conferences, into writing books, into like just converging a community of folks who care about culture and education, the intersections of music and hip hop culture in particular, and education, and trying to make space for more innovative approaches and allowing young people to see themselves within schools. So that's what HipHopEd is for me. And we're not a super formalized organization, but we're working our way because we're recognizing our power and just how many folks aspire to leverage hip hop and culture within educational spaces.
Yeah, I'd like to use like I did not coin this, but Chris always talks about like the Wu-Tang reference for HipHopEd, right? Like we all have our own kind of interests, but they're all under this like shared goal or vision or moniker. And so we squad up when we need to do dope things. And then we do our own things relevant to hip hop and education as well. So yeah, it's great, and it's a really fun time in the work right now as we prepare for the conference and all these other things.
Can I level set real quick because a lot of folks that watch this show may not know who you all are. I'm not the Chris you're talking about, Ian. Like, who is you mentioned? Who's that?
Yeah, absolutely. So sorry, I was referencing Dr. Chris Emden, who's one of the co-founders of HipHopEd, and once upon a time on Twitter, first started hosting a Twitter chat on hip hop and education as a mentor to both Edmund and I. And so that's who I was referencing when I was referencing Chris.
I don't mind like being confused with Dr. Emden, like the work that he's doing out in the field. And I also want to shout out Tim Jones too for helping birth HipHopEd and the work that you all are doing. Carla, what's up?
Yeah. I'm actually curious as to, okay, so like, how does the movement exist? Is it all social media based? I'm hearing some work that we're doing in the classrooms. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
The work exists everywhere. But to be more specific, definitely on social media in terms of community and gathering and supporting community, right? I think what we realize is that there are a lot of educators who are just in different corners of the country and the world who don't have, like they're in silos, right?
Mm-hmm.
And social media is a great and very simple way of connecting us, right? So we jump on Twitter every Tuesday night at 8:15 on Spaces and have conversations now that we can talk, right? As opposed to Twitter chats. So we've evolved in that sense. But, we're also localized, in New York City specifically, doing work with schools and partnering with schools. We have the Science Genius program, which is an initiative that's under HipHopEd, where we go in schools and we support young people and teachers in writing science raps and having, performing them and having a dope competition at the end, right? We're also, Ian and I are both academics and scholars, so we write books, right? And we try to promote and produce scholarship that revolves around hip hop and education. And more importantly, we try to create opportunities for folks who are not traditional academics and scholars to write and share their stories and share their experiences in this work. So we exist in different facets, primarily on social media, I would say, to support the siloing not to support the siloing, but to counter the siloing of educators who need this work and who feel loved when they engage in this work and who feel seen when they engage in this work. But also like we're practical and tangible as well. My work, I know Ian's work is very practical, where we really we're on the ground level as well, where we're supporting educators, supporting school leaders, and working with students around like how do we manifest this work, hip hop and education, and get different perspectives of how we see this work actualized in different educational spaces.
And I know that one way that you're doing that, right? And Ian, you mentioned a little bit this conference. Can you tell us a little bit about this HipHopEd conference that's happening fairly soon?
Yeah, so I mean, I can start just quick. It's going down on June 3rd. It's going to be held in the Bronx at Bronx Legacy High School, which is in the Mott Haven Educational Campus. And it's an all-day conference on a Saturday that really is building on sort of what Edmund was suggesting, like aiming to offer practical insight into what this work looks like, right? And so for quite some time, a lot of the work in hip hop and education has existed. Well, it's existed in the community, but it's been highlighted at the academy level, right? So there's been a lot of conceptual writing. There's been some intervention studies work, and that's all wonderful. And it's necessary. But we're at a place now where folks need this in their hands, right? They need to be inspired to deliver work with youth tomorrow, yesterday, right? And so this conference is really, I think, positioning itself to offer folks some practical strategies and tools. And to do this also, of course, as we celebrate 50 years of hip hop is an important piece as well.
I have to imagine if I were attending a conference that builds itself hip hop ed, I'm not just like going to like sit and get sessions. There's not, I'm not sitting through like a 45-minute lecture. Like what's the day going to feel like at the Hip Hop Ed conference?
It's going to feel like love. It's going to feel like community. There's definitely going to be practical sessions, right? We cater our conference towards educators, but we also cater towards community members, right? Where there's a educational piece to it where teachers get developed and have some training and workshops and presentations. But we also have panels by like amazing educators and community members, and we bring in hip hop artists. So in the past, we've had Young Guru, who was Jay-Z's producer and actually engineer. We've had Beverly Bond from Black Girls Rock. We've had Omari Hartwick, Ghost from Power. So we try to bring in folks in the industry, right? And in the culture who are leveraging and doing this work and bring them to our space so we can talk about the intersections around their work and education. This year we're having Mickey Fax, who is a rapper, also is a co-founder of Pendulum Inc. as well, where they train and support artists. So there's also going to be a number of youth performances and student performances. So it's an opportunity to highlight all of this work, but also an opportunity to like make sense of this work, right? I know when people say hip hop, man, people, I'm at work right now, and when I say hip hop and education, like they're like so confused, right? So I'm gonna just come to the conference and have a good time, and let's make sense of this, or we can demonstrate this to you in that way. So we show, we kind of show the thread between education, community, and young people, and through those different aspects of the conference. So it should be a great time.
Nice.
Yeah. I just want to ask, I know the answer, but for folks who do not know the answer, why the Bronx?
Why not the Bronx, right? But like, so traditionally we've held the conference at Teachers College, right? And academic sense, right? Traditionally, and that's been dope. We love TC. Ian and I are both alum of TC, but being hip hop and hip hop being birthed in the Bronx and celebrating 50 years of hip hop, we didn't see it and to do it any other way. And also like doing it in a traditional public school, right? We want to be localized. We want to be in the community. We want to highlight the schools that we work with, right? We want to highlight the school leaders that we work with, right? Bronx Legacy is an amazing school. Cam is an amazing leader, and I know Cam has worked with Big Picture Learning as well. So we really want to kind of bring all these synergies into this space. And, as being scholars and academics, we don't want everything to exist in the ivory tower, right? We want to be accessible. And this is the kind of work to do to kind of bring down those walls for folks to have access. So access has been really big for us. We can't be hip hop and not be reachable, right? So we have to make sure that we're accessible. That's part of the reason of doing it in the Bronx, in the South Bronx, and doing it at a traditional public high school in New York City. So that's where we're at. Yeah.
Nice. I feel like when I first learned about the conference being back, that was like a central tenet. Like we're back. And I want to ask you, like the pandemic, we all had to sort of just pull out of meeting in person. Yeah. And you all are the way that you use virtual spaces, I have so much admiration for. But I have to imagine too, like central to like hip hop ed and hip hop in general is like communal spaces, right? So what does it mean to be back in person, meeting with other people that are interested in this approach, this work?
I imagine that this physical space is gonna like cultivate a lot of energy and get everybody fired up. And so it's a launching pad for what's next, right? Like it's a way to reconvene and then reimagine what is going to happen after. And that's, I think, what's amazing when we all get together, when community comes together, brilliant ideas are formed. And that's the story of hip hop, isn't it? So I think really looking to do that here, something I'm really excited about. And not that we have not done some cool work in the virtual space, but there's nothing like being in person.
Yeah. The virtual space is dope, but then I think because we exist primarily virtually, when we get together in person, it's a whole nother experience. It's like homecoming of sorts. So I think the most important piece of this conference, I think folks, educators and community members who engage, is just like kind of this like welcoming and this heartwarming feeling, being like in comparison in relationship to education, right? Traditionally, when we go into schools, it may not always be that heartwarming feeling or that positive experience, but we're able to garner all of that through education and through our love for hip hop. So it's like family. It's like a family reunion when we get together in person. So it's just like one of the best times together.
Yeah. Any information about? So I know, Chris, you have the link for folks to register. Is there a specific date you want people to register if they're interested by?
We are working on that. So this is we're growing as an organization, and we have growing pains. But like this is the first time we've always held the conference for free. And that's always been like very important for us. This is the first year we're charging folks, and we're charging to be sustainable. We're charging to feed people lunch, right? We're charging to host a really dope experience for folks. So we're still getting all the nooks and crannies figured out. We're still considering if we're gonna have on-site registration the day of, or if we're gonna have to shut it down about a week. But if folks just follow us on Instagram, all the information will be there on Twitter. So on Instagram at HipHopEd. And on Twitter, the real HipHopEd, and we give folks updates. And if folks want to go on our Instagram, you can always go on our bio and sign up for our newsletter, and we blast out information that way as well for our community.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I don't know if this gives you confidence or doesn't, but we've been doing this for 30 years. We don't have it figured out. So I mean, putting on a conference is just its own thing. So
yeah.
Hey, I wanted to ask Edmund. Ian, I already know you have a EP that just came out, right?
Yeah.
So, but I was asking Edmund, like, is there anything that you want to plug?
Plug, man. I mean, there's always so many things going on right now. I don't think anything in particular. I have a book coming out around hip hop and education. Release date to be determined sometime soon. I think we're considering pushing it back to the fall, but I have a book coming out called Teaching as Liberation, where we're interrogated, where we talk to a bunch of hip hop scholars. We talked to Gloria Laston-Billings. We interviewed David Stovall. We interviewed Chris. Ian's in the book, and we talk about kind of like the foundations of hip hop and education. And we're pushing on these scholars to ask them, like, where do you think the field should go next? Like, we have all these questions. A lot of the work in the field has been very theoretical. So really pushing folks to think about practical and tangible applications of this work. Like, how can we really change the lives of people? A lot of us come to this work through our personal passions and connections to the culture. So we want to make sure we translate that to the young people as well.
And Ian, tell us about that EP.
Ooh, yeah. So I just dropped a project on May 5th called Sometimes I Forget Where I've Been. And it's a collection of 8 songs written chronologically from that sort of, I guess, follow my journey going after tenure within the academy and processing the mind trip that Edmund and I know that is. I'm sure others know as well. But it's so it's out. It's streamable on all platforms. But I think it models like a lot of why I'm excited about the conference and why I'm excited about all things HipHopEd is like I think we all imagine living in a world where folks can be all of these things, right? Rappers are educators, are scholars, are teachers, right? And so like having like a book come out from Edmund and an album come out and a conference happen, right? And like all of these things are things that I think we as HipHopEd want to celebrate simultaneously because we're trying to communicate that like all of these people can be all of these things, right? As they engage in this work and should be all expressions of themselves as they engage in this work. So exciting times and thank you for the opportunity to plug the project.
Yes, of course.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for Cup of Joy. We really appreciated it.
All love. Thanks for having us.
And folks, you should if you're in the area or you want to travel to the area being the Bronx, come to the HipHopEd conference, June 3rd.
June 3rd.
Excellent.
June 3rd.
All right. Appreciate you both.
Thank you.
Carla.
Yes.
I'm glad you asked the question, why the Bronx? Because I don't.
Yeah.
I feel like we are privileged. Like, there's so much going on in the Bronx and like progressive ed right now. Like just the people. Like, Misha Porter is based out of the Bronx.
Yeah.
Dina Simmons in the Bronx. HipHopEd in the Bronx. Did I forget to mention that Big Picture Learning has an office in the Bronx now? So
I know, right?
yeah, but it's a great space. So thank you for asking that question.
Of course. I feel like I've always like whenever I run across someone from the Bronx, it's like they're from the Bronx. So I'm always gotta ask about the Bronx.
Excellent. So thanks everyone for watching another episode of Cup of Joy Cafe. We've got a couple more coming up this month. So hope you'll continue to join us. Thursdays, 11:30 a.m. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube.
Don't forget to register for the HipHopEd conference.
And why not register for Big Bang while you're at it?
That too. And we hope that you make it a great day or not. I missed the last episode. I was on mute. The choice is yours, y'all. Have a good one.